Philippe Vanrie.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. I spent a very bad night and I'm really under stress. The last time I invited Professor Henry Escovitz to speak at one of our conferences in North Africa. He woke me up at 2 o'clock in the night, having no hotels, and we spent half of the night finding an hotel room for him. So I was waiting for his call last night, but it didn't happen, so I'm okay. So the organization was perfect. Congratulations, by the way, for the organization. A very impressive setup, such a network being created in such a short time. I will come back on the network issue in a moment. As you might know, I am the non-specialist here. I'm not a university professor, researchers. I've of course spent a few years in a university, in an engineering school as a student, but I have left university since a long time. And I will try to bring some inspiring reflection on the topic of entrepreneurial universities. By the way, if I may, as an initial statement, I really think, and this is for the moment not evidence-based, it's just an intuitive statement, that the third mission of universities are really essential. And it's not meaning missions 1 and 2 are becoming secondary, it's just that rebalancing the third mission in an appropriate place in the scale of importance is very, very important. And I've heard messages about the risk of corruption, the risk of conflict of interest, the risk of being seen as too much commercial, but don't worry, your mission is still very much of public interest. And it's very much a long-term mission. It's not short-term commercial effect right now. If it is done well, setting up the conditions for transforming universities into also entrepreneurial universities is a long-term mission. By the way, one of the reasons why it is very important, and is maybe to be seen in the comparison with the US, it was one of the questions, and there is a French professor who is making a kind of funny comparison, and he's saying, you know, in the US vocabulary you have big, great, yes. In French vocabulary you say, do you want a petit café? Can we have a pilot project? Could we start at small scale? Could we have an experiment? But the word scaling up is not in our vocabulary, and we also see that in Peter Bauer's presentation. Come on, I was always a bit upset. Launching expression of interest for 1 million euros is a joke. So, even though Henry Escovitz said, even in Stanford, the scalability of incubators has been criticized by him. 7 startups in the incubator in Stanford, come on, it's another joke. Indeed, it's another joke. And I think we'll come back on the point of the scalability and the need to scale up a lot of the initiatives that are tools for deploying the third mission of universities, incubators, science parks, accelerators, entrepreneurship program. And I am not talking about investing in bricks and mortar. By the way, Henry made between the line a critics about governments, regional governments, who are spending billions of euros in setting a huge science park with huge infrastructures, not paying too much attention on the balance between the hardware and the software. That's about that. If you look at the French Ministry of Research, are there French people in the room? Yes, please. Yes, so you are familiar with the Ministry of Research incubation program, which was a revolution in the Paris Ministry of Research, but again, it has been underscaled. Therefore, it's not serious and it has no impact. And more critically, it is just considered as something not serious, very small, not high in the agenda of the top managers of the university. I visited a campus in a medium-sized French university. I had to go to the very end of the campus to find a barrack that was called high-tech university incubator with a pre-pensioned half-time professor, an assistant 200 square meter and 3 pre-startup studying their business plan. It is not serious. Okay, let's go back to serious thing. I just want to go with you on a number of peripheric subjects about entrepreneurial universities, just to say who we are. We are the biggest network in Europe and around Europe, putting together professionals of incubation, tech transfer, acceleration, and the like. At the core of all those discussions, there is the issue of networking. This is very, very serious. And also, when you read between the lines of European Commission doctrines and the whole method of it, it is all about networking. It is all about setting up networks to share and to progress. And universities who are not really fitted for becoming entrepreneurial are organizations who have problems with networks, who have problems to engage themselves in networking organization. And this is very, very serious. Also, in governmental affairs, it's very, very serious. We will speak later about innovation policies, but when you analyze, and this is a picture from a US example, the way the networks are intertwined and organized at the territorial level that give birth to regional and local innovation systems, this is very, very, very serious. It can be formalized, it can be described, it can be measured, and it can be improved. Also, I think networking is to be trained as a core competence. Okay, is there a faculty of networking or a curriculum for networking in your business school? No, not really. You have, of course, networking is behind the scene everywhere, but this is really a key skill. And if you look at small businesses now, if you look at digital startups, if you look at their business models, at their way to create teams, at their way to monetize their ideas, it's all about setting up an ad hoc customized network of prescriptors, network of suppliers, network of talents, networks of possible customers, network of other value chain plug-in players, etc. And I think this is a prerequisite for any organization, whether it is a startup, a big company, a public administration, a university, to become entrepreneurial. The heart of networking should be injected in the genes of the decision makers and of the players. It's a true new profession. Also, the networking feature and business object is very interesting because it's by essence, it's not a corporation, a lobby who give factual, static information. It is a real platform for progress, for improvement, for services, and for innovation. It's also the way to build collectively the reputation. You are here today to hang up the reputation of university, industry, interaction offices or tech transfer offices. Alone you can not do it. It's by being together in a network that you build, you construct the reputation, you construct the roadmap, you benchmark yourself with others because fundamentally, of course, it's a major collaborative behavior. Sorry for the other football fans. This is one of my best case because indeed it's even becoming boring. I know there is a Catalan in the room. The Barça football is boring because the mechanics, the team mechanics is simply perfect. They have just forgotten that they have to score at the end when Messi is not there. But okay, it's very interesting to analyze in terms of team spirit. What I would like also to say that, frankly, why are you here today? Why have you invested 3 days of your busy time to come here to listen to and to meet people? Because probably you have realized that alone you know very little. And basically I can dare stating that the little things I know them because I saw it elsewhere. I saw it in other places, with other people, with other organizations. So really, this is essential for a university or for any kind of organization to be in progress, in movement, in innovation and that to create wealth. And I suppose that the reason for university to become entrepreneurial is to create wealth at the territorial level for the assets of the university and for its stakeholders. But there are a lot of reasons, and one of the statement I quote very often is one of the doctrine of the former senior VP for research of Procter & Gamble, Nabil Sakab, who said when they started their Connect and Develop program, it's not about knowing how, it's about knowing who knows how, and to create the link together. Of course, I make a word about clustering. There was, I think Henry mentioned the clustering word, because the clustering is a very interesting device for universities, for any kind of networking, innovative organization to create the link with industry, with small and big businesses. But also there, take care, because there are a lot of attempts who create another ghetto, another vertical silo, who is an engine to pump, for example, grants from the ministry ABC, and who forget that a cluster, a network, are needed to do what? To focus on downstream application. And maybe Peter said something, maybe you have forgotten we are in a recession. That's not what I'm saying, but maybe with the respect I have with the mainstream missions of universities, I don't see the problem to think with a focus on economic issues, on social and economic issues. And it's not that instead of something else, it's let's rebalance the interest for economic issues of the whole supply chain of innovation and technology support systems. And of course, it's about looking at downstream application, where maybe the IP issue is absent. Segments of the value chain where things, when wealth, value can be created quite quickly, with a high degree of freedom, a high degree of taking the risk of being seen as a troublemaker, as a turbulent pupil, a turbulent student, and I hope you will have in your criteria of entrepreneurial universities a premium for turbulent students. Maybe this is one of the interesting things. But the clusters themselves must be more entrepreneurial and must be, and the clusters in which universities are embedded should be more entrepreneurial themselves. Okay, innovation. I will go very quickly. It is a few slides about innovation, and probably, well, you recognize the first company, but you probably recognize the corporates behind those brand, those strapline and mottos. And I want to make a parallelism between the way the words are used by corporates and entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial organization behind. Because when you analyze those magical keywords, it's all about market and customers, ideas and networking. At the end, when you take out the keywords of how the Procter, the Oracle, the HP, the Apple of the planet are using their slogan and create the culture, it's about people and entrepreneur and people and intrapreneur. Because not all companies might have a spin-off and an outsourcing policy, but the entrepreneurship spirit is there constantly present as a management device, as a key management device, and we could say that in innovation as well, you see that the entrepreneurial vocabulary is omnipresent, is everywhere. It's not a technology vocabulary, it's a management vocabulary. It's about management. Maybe innovation is the new word for management. It talks about optimizing, it talks about creating value, it talks about teams, it talks about participative management, it talks about integration of innovation value at the core of the strategy. It talks about systems. It means it talks about implementation and scaling up. It talks about looking at the market more and more. It talks about interaction with the environment at the periphery of the core business of the organization. If I take a university, that's the same logic. Becoming entrepreneurial means, indeed, it's thinking at the periphery of your core business, but that's where you can make a difference, where you can probably take a lead in the ecosystem's life through, of course, Incubators, Science Park and the like, but through any kind of things. It's also, if you look at all the open innovation, nice stories that you know very well, it's about putting small businesses, either by spinning in or spinning out, into the culture, into the Darwinian ecosystem of the firm. I don't see reasons why the university could not do that the same way. By the way, they do it. They do it, but maybe they should do it strong and better. And I liked very much what Henry said about it's not because it's going well that you don't have to improve. And I know there are Finnish friends in the room from Helsinki University. I've spoken with them yesterday. One of the story I was coming back from Helsinki in the last couple of years, before Nokia went down, was all people who were visiting in Finland who knew about the miracle of the Finnish innovation ecosystem. And 6-7 years ago already I met Finns who said, we are fed up to welcome you because we know it's a message that we are reaching the top of the curve and the only thing that can happen is that we will go down sooner or later. So this thing of improving, and don't take my recommendation badly, it's simply that there are, as we say diplomatically in Commission language, there are rooms for significant improvement or optimization of what you do in this aspect. The application culture is very, very essential, and I've seen places where maybe, oh, you know, okay, it's just another application developer, not really interesting for me as an institution, just another application. Okay, maybe, but by creating a grouping of this, you make a difference. A few words about innovation policies. Peter and the moderator mentioned the smart specialization strategies. Take care, this will become, of course, a major doctrine behind most of the new Commission policies, but I simply think this is something that affects not only regional authorities, local authorities, but universities embedded in a given territory, and a few thinking about this. The first thing is the comparative advantage, the competitive advantage, the Porter statement. And of course, Pascal Lamy is frightening me in this picture. I say, oh, I don't want to play on this game of being competitive on the world market. I want to stay small and I don't want to grow. Of course, it means let's be modest. Competitive advantage starts where you start to put a small incremental improvement of your process, of the way you think your critical mass can be better. Okay, we could also make the critics of the mass, but the critical mass is an essential criteria, and I think we have to constantly question ourselves. Are our brilliant ideas in terms of policies, but in terms of tools, in terms of startup, in terms of investment, are they reaching a critical mass level? Critical mass doesn't mean dinosauric mass. Critical mass means critical mass. It's a relative concept today, here and now, for a given problem. It's not, so think critical mass, but criticize the mass in the same time. The prioritization and the focus is, I think, very essential, and this is also something the top management of universities should consider. Are the entrepreneurial initiatives, come on, a toy to be politically correct or to satisfy a few turbulent professors, or because there are a few grants available at the regional funds, or because the other has created a small incubator? Or is it something really that you prioritize, on which you focused, and on which you differentiate yourself, on which you allocate adequate resources in team, in staff, in cash, in equipment, in infrastructure, in positioning on the market, and for which you can put evidence on the table about the impact, the first result, and the prospective impact you can have. This is what I recommend to do in those kind of things. And of course, with entrepreneur insight, definitely, initiatives like this, without entrepreneurs' insight, including in the governance, not in a steering committee that meets twice a year. Well, no, this is not governance. This is socialization with a few influential people. But really putting entrepreneurs inside will make a difference. It doesn't mean you lose control. It means you give the tune by keeping control. Because at the end of the day, if you, university leaders, wants to have an influence on the entrepreneurial ecosystem, you have to not forget this, that this is, by the way, one of the main reasons of the lack, or we say in French, le désamour. I'm not in love again with you, dear professors, dear research institutes. I am an SME manager in high-tech activities in my field. And I recently made an audit for a few French regions, and French regions with fantastic research and university facilities. And one of the leaders in food industry. Okay, you could say, okay, food industry is commodity, is not really what we are looking for, okay. But a leader, a company of 700 people, family-owned, with a very, very innovative, was saying, as a kind of provocative statement, and I just share it with you today, I'm not interested that the government funded 10 years fundamental research on the characterization of the molecules that might one day come into one of my products. I'm not interested that they only fund that. I'm interested maybe that side by that you invest in a living lab type of platform, that where you mix famous French chefs, wine experts, molecular kitchen inventors, together with those who are searching for a better fine-tuned characterization of the molecules. So I found it very inspiring. It's not a statement, a caricatural statement against fundamental research in characterization of raw material. It's an interesting statement for me, but never forget this. And of course, when the small business grows, the priorities are increasing, and maybe some of them are also touching some areas of expertise on which you can provide a support. Incubation and acceleration, the former speakers have mentioned this several times. This is also very serious, and my statement about the scale up is also a statement saying take care. And the story about the pre-pensioned half-time professor in the barrack at the end of the campus is a caricature, but it means this is serious. And it is serious not only in the facilities. You see wonderful pictures here, but it's very serious in the systematic, in the methodology, in the skills, in the dynamics, in the entrepreneurship that advisors have themselves. Why entrepreneurship advisor should not have in their curriculum an entrepreneur background themselves. This is very rare if you look at university incubators. Very few managers have this. Last but not least, a last series of comments is that, of course, you have to invest in the ecosystem. Even if you are Stanford, even if you are École Polytechnique, even if you are Aalto University, don't believe you are alone in the ecosystem. You have really to engage and to make sure the other small and biggest stakeholders are engaged in the exercise. And for example, your university might be very reputed, very strong, unavoidable partner, but maybe your TTO is not credible. Maybe your IP office is not helping SMEs, they are not just working for a few large corporates, or maybe your remarkable equipments are only used by Siemens for testing anechoic frequencies. But okay, this is not how you will invest in the ecosystem. Because what I liked also in one of the examples taken by Henry is that literally this can happen anywhere, not only in Amsterdam, Helsinki, Munich, and Cambridge. Everywhere, everywhere, even, and especially, this is a last provocative statement for the debate, if there are no universal 500 years of age global reputed universities, but where there is only a polytechnic, one or two, a small business school, who is operating, and because they have to become somebody, who are really making extraordinary effort to position themselves, to differentiate themselves, and very often they take the applied innovation route to distinguish themselves from the magma of university competitors, because you're also competitors between yourself. Invest in quality. That's very, very important. It's not because it's a very informal business. Incubation, acceleration, clustering, tech transfer. Invest in quality and in the characterization of your core business and of your core competence. So it needs to be described, to be measured, to be trained, to be educated, to be transferred, to be promoted. It's also a way to be promoted, and also be modest. There is a trend when you get the money, when you get the historic reputation, because we have all been educated with a universal way of thinking, that we can do all what you need for any kind of target groups. This is a critiques I made sometime for example, business support organization like big chambers of commerce and industry in France or in Italy, who are, because they have huge teams, huge budgets, huge facilities, they say, okay, we can deliver services from A to Z to any kind of target groups, high-tech spin-offs to micro-entrepreneurs. I think experience shows that even when you have deep pockets with big teams, you need to focus and to position yourself and sell who you are on the value chain of tech transfer, support, transforming ideas into businesses and then coaching businesses. Invest in quantity. Indeed, when Henry said, come on, 7 startups a year in Stanford Incubator, that's funny. Indeed, you need either to demonstrate that those 7 startups are growing gazelles that are having leverage effect to others in businesses and outside businesses, or you have to work in quantities. The statistical law apply to you in the funnel logic, but also on your positioning on the market. And indeed, I see that the future of any kind of entrepreneurial universities, and Peter reminded this very well, it's not anymore to bother people with the input statistics. The fact you have, in the reporting you make to the stakeholders and the funders, don't lose time anymore in calculating all the input factors, but look for the impact. And this is where we have no time to forget the impact. So look at the result, have a result-driven policy and a metrics systematic organization that can measure the impact. It is the basis of becoming better. It is the basis of being able to benchmark, to compare yourself, to improve, to be pushed in the back by your policymakers, and to be credible with the private sector. This is just an example of the type of thing we do for our network in order to push and steer impact. Thank you very much.